Hey, Shalom, Esha, when it start for souls, but give no praise to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh, Shaba, Hashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS and honesty, brothers doing the work in truth, while sincerity. This is a video on, these weirdomites and their obsession with penises, right? Something that came up the camp, thought I'd do a video on it. And, even just today I was watching one of those, stand-up comedy shows, Love at the Apollo, right? And then all three of the acts, as always, we kept mentioning, the penis, right? And it's sort of like, that's, yeah, and it's something that's happened throughout history, right? Well, I forget which one of these three articles it was. It was basically saying in ancient, Greece, that was, what you call it, that it was, there was so much more than in other places, right? So like I said, there's some articles, bit of a read, in there as well. Then I've got some scriptures and we'll see where the spirit leads, right? So it says, create debates is what caused the Greco-Roman obsession with the phallus, right? In fact, let's look up that word, phallus, here. Right, it says phallus, noun and image of the penis, from Latin phallus, from Greek phallos, penis, also carving or image of an erect penis, used in the cult of Dionysus, from Proto-Indo-European belno, from root bell to blow, spell, bull, Old English bull, little bull, possibly phalle, well, used of the penis itself, often in symbolic context, from 1924. Right, so that's what that word means. This is to ancient Greece, the penis was the main symbol of fertility, right? This is history of sex, ancient Greece. One of the more astonishing aspects of Greco-Roman culture was their acute obsession with sexual organs, especially male genitalia. Phallic worship is known to have been practiced by a number of different pagan religions, but none could ever match the emphasis that the Greco-Roman builders and artists had with the penis. Here's a short synopsis concerning this fairly pornographic tradition. It says, in ancient Greek art, there is a lot of phallus or penis worship by men, right? Men are generally depicted naked, including soldiers. Prostitutes were generally depicted naked with naked men. Men liked to depict their own penises as dainty little penises. In later Greek art, this is early Greek art, 5th century BC, tells a different tale. In the artwork from that time frame, men gave themselves oversized phalluses. So sometimes they had double penises. They depicted plants as being penises in the ground. They even depicted animals as having penis features, such as a horse with an erect penis for a head, or a bird with erect penises for heads. And you just said, like, why would you do that? Right, and the scriptures, that comes to mind for one is Habakkuk 2:4 says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him." Right, to have such an obsession with rod, right, with another man's rod, and if you grew up around these guys, they were always drawing penises or whatever, what have you, right? That seemed like that was something that was always on their mind, right? Whereas more time, Jake, they were just trying to get some box, right, from like 12 years old, trying to get a box, right? So I'll carry on. Let me see, is there anything more in there? I mean, there may be, because there's a lot of reads. I didn't want to go into it too much. Right, this is why ancient Greek sculptures have small penises, and you see all these ancient Greek sculptures, right? There are, rods for days and whatever. It says the ancient Greeks, this is from artsy.net, it says the ancient Greeks famously fetishized the male body in sculptures that represent powerful, illustrious men as hulking figures with taut, rippling muscles. Sometimes these figures appear partially clothed in drapery or cloth, or often they are stark naked. To the contemporary eye, their bodies are ideal, except for one seminal detail: they have small to very small penises compared to the average of humanity. Right, art historian Andrew Lear, and a specialist in ancient Greek art. So one of the things they did was, not only did they always have these men, like I said, naked or whatever, they also basically, you read through it, basically made what they came to was having a big rod was frowned upon, right? Which is why they always have what do you call it, small rods, right? So rewind to the ancient Greek world of around 400 BC, you'll find that large erect penises were not considered desirable, nor were they a sign of power or strength, right? Which is, just, it's like this, Isaiah 29:16. It says, "Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay," right? Because and Esau likes turning things upside down. Just like, for instance, I remember growing up, the notion of having a woman having a big bum, that was frowned upon. Oh my God, does my bum look big in this? I remember growing up thinking, what the fuck is wrong with having a big bum, right? But that is how this man goes. And basically what it's going into the features that Jake have. It's demonizing Jake, right? Because in fact, when we carry on in here, no, it even kind of goes into that, right? So as penises were not large penises were not considered desirable, nor were they a sign of power or strength, right? In this play, The Clouds, ancient Greek playwright Aristophanes summed up the ideal traits of his male peers as a gleaming chest, bright skin, broad shoulders, tiny tongue, strong buttocks, and a little prick. Right? Let me jump. Right. So it says lustful, depraved satire. In fact, let me read this paragraph. In ancient Greek art, most of great men's features were represented as ample, firm, and shiny. So why weren't these same aesthetic principles applied to the penis? As Lear and other historians suggest, part of the answer lies in how the phallus of less admirable men were portrayed. Right, so lustful, depraved satires in particular were rendered with very large, erect genitals, sometimes almost as tall as their torsos. According to mythology, these creatures were part man, part animal, totally lacked restraint, and a quality reviled by Greek high society. Right now, if you remember, times of slavery, right? What was one of the things at the end of slavery, for instance, was one of the things they pushed was the so-called black man was a rapist, right? What is this film? I believe, I want to say Birth of a Nation, the original one. I want to say that one, but basically where the actors all have blackface and all of that, and they're basically there's this Jake, he's just going like a brute beast, raping this white woman or whatever, what have you, and that's how they were depicting Jake, right? It says according to mythology, these creatures were part man. So basically, what I'm getting from this is they're basically saying, look, Jake has big willies. Jake is undesirable, whatever, what have you, right? And then they're looking down on that, right? Because that is something that they themselves don't have. Which when you actually look at it, according to the sciences, and it's something that shows you the wonder of the Lord, right? When you look into the sciences, or rather biology and what they say. Well, I ain't gone around every woman and measured, but they say apparently the female vagina is naturally only 3 to 5 inches. Right now we know that after all, it molds to a man's her partner's rod or whatever, but that basically means every man for the most part can satisfy his woman, right? You have which call it those Asian men. They say that most condoms are too big for them. Just a regular condom is too big for them, right? But if their woman's vagina is can fit what it is that they have, if it all makes sense, then there is no issue there to be had, right? But what has happened? We've which call it here, for instance, penises all over the place. Right, and then in this is ancient Greece, and in modern society, you have porn, you have all of these dicks all over, what you call it, the internet or whatever, what have you, right? Everyone comparing. Oh, you even have the phrase BBC, right? Big black cock, right? And so what you have? You have all of these women going in and lusting and looking, because at the end of the day, a woman should even know what a big dick is, because the only penis she should have seen is yours, right? But it just shows you the kind of society that we live in today, right? A wicked and adulterous generation. Let me get that real quick. Right, it says Matthew 16:14. It says, "A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign." Right, for instance, you deal with a woman. If she wasn't a virgin before you dealt with her, technically speaking, you've committed adultery. Right, and that's just that's just the world we live in. Right, and the standard that we just go by is, has she got a boyfriend? She's got a boyfriend, you don't deal with it. If she's single, you can deal with it, right? Because all of these women have been dealt with, and that is by decree of Esau, right? Let me grab that. With this whole feminism and sexual liberation and whatever, what have you, right? It says Isaiah 10 says, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed," right? And women's lib is an unrighteous decree, right? Because what happens, all these women just go around, they gad abroad, right? Sucking and fucking, right? This is Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach 25 and 25. It says, "Give the water no passage, neither a wicked woman liberty to gad abroad," right? And what does she do? And what's one of those things that let me say that again. What is an example of women gadding abroad? These universities, you have these guys sending their daughters to universities. Their daughter might have been a virgin, but then she comes out, she's on 4 cocks or whatever, right? She's completely wicked. Now, your woman should only have ever seen one penis in her entire life, right? So I come back to this article here. This is lustful, depraved satires in particular were rendered with very large, erect genitals, sometimes as I read that already. Yes, the big penises were vulgar and outside the cultural norm, something sported by the barbarians of the world. And like I said, you look back, especially at the end of slavery, that's how Jake were depicted, right? So it's the same things happening all over again, right? This is in Greek comedy. Fools also routinely sported large genitals, the sign of stupidity, more of a beast than a man. Once again, what is that talking? That's you have, what do you call it? That's it's like my mind just blanked out. Where is it? Let me grab this scripture. So I'll grab this real quick. It says Ecclesiastes 3:15 says, "That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been, and the Most High requireth that which is past." Right. So reincarnation. These are the same themes being reincarnated, happening again. Right. Just like back then, Jake was seen as brute beast and whatever, what have you. Right now what? Now in this kingdom, the same thing has happened. How would they depict Jake, right? Beastly, big lips or whatever, right? Just going around fucking everything. No self-control, right? Mandingos, right? In this way, satires, fools and foes served as foils to male gods and heroes who were honored for their self-control and intelligence. Right, it says, if large phalluses represented gluttonous appetites, then the conclusion can be drawn that the small, flaccid penis represented self-control. Right, so I started reading. I don't know if I still got it. I believe I closed it. Right, but that's that turning of things upside down. Right, now don't get me wrong. Jake nowadays do be acting like brute beasts, just going around fucking, having several children that they don't know about. Right. and but that goes back to the curses written in Deuteronomy the 28th chapter, right? It says, I'll read it again. Isaiah 29:16 says, surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as a potter's clay, for shall the works of him that made it, he made me not, or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he had no understanding, right? So yeah, it says surely you're turning of things upside down, which is what's happened. We had a norm, and then Esau changed that, right? And it's something that's been happening in throughout history, right? Let's see if there's anything else. Right. Yeah, so I'll leave that one. Go jump to this one. It says penises of the ancient world. Phallus found in Roman toilet was far from the first. It says a mosaic of a young man holding his erect penis has been found in a Roman toilet in Turkey, but portraying the male member is a tradition that stretches much further back in human history. Right, so you see that? Like what the fuck is that, man? Right? Was that? What, three dicks? Right, it says when excavations began at the ancient Roman city of Pompeii in the 18th century, the place turned out to be full of penises. Right, it says the ancient art preserved under ash from 79 AD eruption of Vesuvius was so rich in willies that the English antiquarian Richard Payne Knight argued for the existence of an ancient fertility cult there. Right, so the B basically was like, this is uh, 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 um, these guys must have been worshipping penises here, right? It says, after all, there was one still alive in southern Italy at that time. His 1786 book, an account of the remains of the worship of Priapus, has an engraved frontispiece showing an array of contemporary wax phalluses made as votive offerings. Right, see, what the fuck? What the fuck is that? Right. This is Greek vases are covered in dick pics on a red figure vessel signed by artist Doris in about 480 BC. Satyrs are having a wild party, right? It says one of them rests his hand on the ground behind him while arching his body backwards so he can balance a cup on his erect penis. It's amazingly lifelike. Did any Greeks actually do this, right? And you see this statue here. It looks like he was holding it, and which could have removed, the phallus. Right here, goes into the fact that this was happening in Egypt as well, right? With Min, M-I-N, right? Yeah. So the real question is, what do all these willies mean? The toilet mosaic in Turkey shows that the Greeks and Romans could mock their own myths. It could also suggest a homoerotic atmosphere in its public convenience, right? So, look, man, these Edomites, man, they're just weirdos, man. They're weirdos, and you see them when they get into their nature, right? When they get drunk, right? That's what they talk about. Talk about willies. They'll be talking. Here it is. They'll be talking about their slaves' willies in their own kingdoms. What kind of bullshit is that, right? So I said, I'll grab this again. Habakkuk 2:4 says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Right, the just talking about the Israelites and also the elect of Israel. Right, but the first bit is talking about Esau. Right, so it says his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. Right, to be constantly just thinking about sex and whatever, that's not right. That's brute. That's that's a level of a brute beast, right? And that's what these elites be pushing out on the people. In fact, let me grab that in verse 15. It says, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, and that drink is philosophies, right? A lot of these what do you call it, a lot of these children, I went to school with one kid. I remember him telling me he used to wank 11 times a day. But did he have a woman? No. Was he actively trying to get a woman? No. Yeah, there were women that he liked, but what was his mind on that? And that's the philosophies that these elites just be putting, on the people. Like they say that quote unquote, these youngsters now aren't even having sex like that anymore, right? It says that putteth that bottle to him and makes them drunk, and also that thou mayest look on their nakedness, right? So these philosophies being pushed on the people, and it's to the detriment of the people, right? This is Genesis 25:23. It says, and the Lord said unto her, two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. Right, so there are two, and that's talking about Jacob and Esau, right? And we're two manner of people, we're different, right? I gave the example, whereas Jake, at that age, was just, just trying to, move to girls and do stuff. Esau, all he do is drawing penises, right? Constantly just, infatuated about dick size and all of that. And that, I said, that's a lot of that goes back to the porn, which is pushed out by these Amalekites, right? These so-called Jews, right? These guys be more interested in dick size than about actually performing, about actually laying their smack down on their woman, right? About actually doing, what do you call it? Laying her out, right? This is Sirach 29:21. Says the chief thing for life is water and bread and clothing, right? And then house to cover shame. Alright, so hey, clothing's important, man. You just cover up. But what were the Greeks doing, right? Greeks were showing all of this, doing all of that. Everyone's naked. Now, whether they were actually walking around like this, I don't know. I'm not too strong on that history. Whether they were actually walking around like this, butt ass naked, or whether this is just how they depicted themselves, right? You're supposed to be clothed, man. Now you get them nudist beaches. You're supposed to be clothed. Right, it's Sirach 39:26, saying more or less the same thing. It says the principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, which is wine. It says, and oil and clothing. Right. So yeah, it was a bit longer than normal, but I just wanted to share that information with you. Laws that was there to find, and those who can get out here, man. You think they're gonna be, drawings of penises, as you enter, the gates of Jerusalem and the kingdom? Hell no, right? And that's what we look forward to, a new world wherein dwelleth righteousness. So until the next time, I say shalom.